All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Date My Friends with me, your host, Taylor P. Miller. Today, we're so lucky. Every week, I bring a eligible, single, amazing bachelor or bachelorette onto the show. And today, this is a former coworker and current friend, Hannah Leder. Welcome to Date My Friends.
Thank you.
So we have a surprise. This is the first ever dual episode of Date My Friends. Hannah's dad is a very respected senior rabbi, and he is going to join us right now. We're going to go and get him in about 12-ish minutes to share some of his wisdom with us.
But he's not single. Remember,
not single,
date.
so you cannot reach out. He is married to Hannah's mom. Imagine he gets hit on.
Oh, jeez.
Hannah and I were preschool teachers together. She's moved on to admin, so I think it's safe to say good with kids and organized. Everything a guy wants in a girl.
That's true. I've become more organized with my new job.
Good. Was it hard?
Yes. It's still very hard.
I don't think I would know how to do any administrative work.
I was always the type B teacher.
Yeah.
I didn't have,
Did you fill out like all the forms that we have to fill out?
No.
Yeah, same.
No. But I saw a TikTok that was like, the type B teachers, like, don't get down on yourself for not being...
I think we're better teachers.
Yeah, we're the ones the kids remember, and we're the ones the kids want to come back and visit. And, we're the ones who they want us to babysit for them,
Totally. I think the less forms you fill out, the more that means you're dancing around and singing and playing with the kids.
Exactly.
I don't have time to fill out an incident report for a stub toe.
No.
Head, I try to fill out all the head. If it's the head, I do the
report.
report. Only because I didn't a few times and I got in trouble.
At first, I was jealous of the super type A teachers who had color coordinated everything and, laminated everything. But that's just not me. I'd rather provide the children.
I'm messy. I think the kids, they see me in them. They see themselves in me because they're like, she's messy. Yeah. She lost her water bottle just like I do every day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I always ask every guest, can you just tell us a little bit about your dating journey this far? You can go as far back as you want. You can tell us about your current dating situation, or you can kind of go through your life of dating. But just kind of fill us in. Where are you at?
My current dating situation. I've been single for a little over 2 years. 2 years and a few months.
I kind of feel like that's low-key the best time to find your person. Detached from the last relationship, healed, kind of. Are you feeling ready to meet the one?
Yes, I am so ready. I've done the work. I'm ready. I'm longing for it. And, it's just a matter of time, I guess. But
what does that work look like? Are you in therapy? Is it new hobbies?
I have been in therapy for, oh my God. I think I started when I was probably 24.
Wow, that's late for a Jew. I feel like we start as kids.
Well, no,
usually.
I went to a lot of child therapists because I had a lot of separation anxiety issues. I was the kid.
My parents put me in at 7.
Yeah, I was the one who couldn't go on the sleepover, and I would call my parents in the middle of the night to come and pick me up, and I couldn't. I felt like if I wasn't around them, they would die. I was very fucked up as a child.
That sounds way more Jewish than not starting therapy until you're 24.
So I've been consistently going since I was 24 because I worked for this interior designer, this very, very famous interior designer who was so mean to me, verbally abusive to me.
Oh.
And I kind of just cracked. And I was so on edge and didn't know how to get through it. I knew I was going to quit working for this guy. And so my mom was like, why don't you just go and talk to someone about it? Just figure out your exit strategy. Just figure out how you're going to, get away from this guy. So I started therapy when I was 24 and I was single then. But then when I was 26, I got into a relationship and I was in that relationship for 3 years.
And that's the one you got out of?
Yes, 2 years ago. And I'm 32 now. So we broke up a couple weeks after my 30th birthday.
Okay.
And I've been single for a little over 2 years, and my dating journey has been
I
wild.
think, dating in your 30s. Like, I also got
Oh
into
my
a
God.
relationship at the end of my 20s. So it was like, I was on the dating apps at 26 or 27 and then came back on at 29. And I'm like, I know it was only 2 years, but it feels
Yeah.
different.
Dating in your 30s is totally different than dating in your 20s.
It's better in some ways and worse in some ways. Like,
totally.
for me, the better, people are way more straightforward, which I love. Like, I feel like your 20s was about pretending you didn't want a boyfriend. Like, you'd be
Exactly.
like, no, I want something casual. And they'd be like, yeah, I want something casual. And now guys will literally ask me on a first date, like, do you want kids?
Yeah.
And I'm
exactly.
like, wait, yeah, do you? And they're like, yeah, I'm not dating anyone who doesn't.
Gotta talk about those big things first. And
It's like, that's normal for a first date. Like,
Yeah.
it's actually common, I would say, more than not. They say, like, what are you looking for?
And in your 20s, you think that if you ask those questions, you'll scare the guy away.
And now I'm like, tell me right now because I only got so many.
Exactly. And if you scare him away, you don't want to be with that guy in the first place. That's not the kind of person you want to be with. Someone who gets scared when you talk about kids and life and the future. And that's kind of what fucked me over when I got into my most recent relationship, because I was 26 when I met him. I just wanted a boyfriend. I didn't know that you're supposed to talk about the future. I didn't know you're supposed to talk about kids and, you know, all of that all those big important things. I didn't know that's what you're supposed to talk about.
Totally.
And, you know, when I broke up with him and, you know, started doing all the post-breakup work and therapy that you hear about, I really started realizing that you can't be afraid to bring those things up because you have to talk about those things.
I also think dating at this age is interesting because, like, everyone has an ex, if not more than one. And in your 20s, like, not everyone had an ex. And I think that's a good thing and a bad thing. Like, it can be a bad thing because people are hung up, but it can be a good thing because you've learned a lot. You've learned about what you don't want. You've learned how to communicate. But now it's like, all right, I've got some exes. Everyone I'm dating has got some exes. It's just part of it. And I think it makes it easier and harder.
Yeah. Yeah. It's easier because I know so much more about what I want and who I am.
Yeah. And I think the guys know more about what they want.
But it's also harder because since my standards are higher, less people meet them.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it harder to find somebody.
Do you have, like, green flags, things that you're looking for in a partner? Because you've said you've learned a lot about what you're not looking for.
Oh my God. I have a whole list in my phone of things that I'm looking for.
Do you want to read it?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll read some. It's pretty long.
Did you write it for this podcast or you just
Oh,
have
no. I wrote it. I kind of like put it together with my therapist.
Okay.
But then whenever something pops into my head, I go and I just add to it. I got to find it.
Wait, I should do that. That's smart.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. Okay. I'll just read a few.
Okay.
Someone who's proactive, whose words and actions line up, and someone who
That's
doesn't
huge.
someone who doesn't procrastinate, someone who doesn't say they're going to do something and then not do it. That's a huge turn off to me. Is when somebody keeps saying, "Oh, you know, I was going to, or I will, I'm going to do it, I promise," and then they just don't. I don't know. It's just a huge turn off to me, and it makes me wonder, what kind of a father is this guy going to be? What kind of a husband is he going to be if he can't even keep a simple promise?
Yeah.
So that's
It's so
very big for
frustrating.
me, is doing what you say you're going to do. Follow through. Follow through is so hot.
It's so hot.
It is.
It's like, it's so uncommon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you are a grown up,
Yeah.
sir.
Wow, I'm so impressed by this. My green flags is like nice, employed.
I mean, that's on there too. I mean, I have,
You've actually thought about real things.
Well, no, I
I'm like,
have-
does he have a job?
one of them has health insurance,
Oh, huge.
close with his family. Someone whose parents are still together is a plus. It's not a requirement, but it helps. I
Yeah.
have no problem dating somebody whose parents are divorced, as long as they've worked through the issues that may have caused
Yeah.
from childhood. Because
Yeah,
if they haven't worked through those issues,
Yeah.
it's bad news. And that kind of goes into someone who has a similar relationship with their family that I have with mine, because my family is so close. We're like 4 best friends. That's what I say. It's me and my mom, my dad, and my brother. And not everyone understands what that feels like, and it can be hard for someone who didn't grow up with a family like that to feel accepted or,
Have you ever
like they
been with
fit
a
in.
guy and you're like, oh yeah, I was just telling my mom this, and then they're like, you tell your mom that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, I tell my mom everything.
I mean, I tell my mom a lot.
I don't
but
tell
not
her
everything.
I don't
mean,
tell her everything, but I
Yeah.
tell her a lot.
Yeah, me too.
90%.
Yeah.
What she can handle.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's hard. Sometimes it's hard for my mom to relate because she and my dad got engaged on their second date. My parents got engaged on their second date.
That is
I know.
wild.
I know. It makes me. Don't even get me started.
That is insane.
Yeah. Let's see. Someone who wants to live in LA and stay here and raise
We'll
a
circle
family
back
here.
to that, by the way.
Okay.
But
Yeah. Someone who doesn't smoke a jewel. Someone who drinks like a normal amount.
yeah,
Just
jewels are such a turnoff.
so
Worse than cigarettes
Oh yeah.
because there's no break
Right. And you could take it anywhere.
anywhere.
You could jewel on the toilet.
In the sleeve at Sugarfish.
Oh,
My ex did
no.
that. Like he was like, I want to take you out to a nice dinner.
Oh, oh my God, that is so
Like
funny.
our anniversary.
Why are you being so secretive about it? I don't understand.
No,
or like,
just not for me, for the restaurant. He
Oh,
just didn't
yeah.
want to get kicked out of Sugarfish.
oh, well, yeah. Or, accusing you of sitting on it on the couch. Like, get up.
Oh Jesus!
Get
yeah.
up. Let me look under the
Stand
couch.
up. You're sitting on my jewel.
Empty jewel pods all over the fucking car.
Or we gotta stop at 7-Eleven. My jewel just ran out of battery.
Yeah. Fuck that.
Late everywhere.
Anyway, so I also have, financially stable, loves their job. No one loves their job, but someone who's not miserable at it. Compassionate, responsible, someone who's playful. Playfulness is a really big thing for me. Like having a bit. Like I love having bits with people.
Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned that your family's very close. You guys are all best friends. I think it's time to go and get pops. I'm going to give you an official introduction if that's
Sure.
okay. Just so,
Take it away.
Just so they know you're legit before you start spewing advice. Because, if my dad got on here and started giving advice, we probably shouldn't take that. He sells insurance. Okay, so today we have the incredible honor of speaking with Rabbi Steve Leder. He was the senior rabbi at Wilshire Boulevard Temple and acclaimed author of several books on grief, healing, and personal growth. Rabbi Leder has over 30 years of experience providing guidance to individuals and couples, helping them navigate the complexities of love, commitment, and even loss. His work has touched on everything from emotional challenges of relationships to the spiritual aspects of personal growth, making him a powerful voice in modern relationship counseling. He also was the rabbinical consultant on the new Netflix show, Nobody Wants This, and there is some speculation that Hot Rabbi is loosely based on you, Rabbi Leder.
You never know.
So it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you to Date My Friends. Welcome to the show.
So happy to be with you.
Did Hannah fill you in on what this podcast is?
Not at all.
Little
Okay.
bit.
So it's
A
called
little bit was dating.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, that I know.
So it's called Date My Friends, and every week I interview a single friend, and then my followers, so Hannah's the single friend, my followers can ask them out on a date.
Wow.
Our first guest got asked out 14 times.
Anything stick after all?
I
of
don't
this?
know if she's gone on any dates. I have to follow up. There's also a live singles event that goes with it once a month.
Good for you.
I went to
Thank
the
you.
last one.
Okay,
What
so
a great idea.
thank you.
Yeah.
I'm a what do you call it? A shidduch?
A shadchan.
A shadcha.
Shadchan.
Shadchin.
That's
Yeah,
hard. to say.
shadchan is a person who
Creates.
a shidduch is a match.
Okay.
So a shadchan is a professional matchmaker.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to be. I'm actually going to start by asking Hannah a question. Hannah, do you have a favorite piece of dating advice that your dad has ever given to you over the years? You're so lucky that you have a professional to
know.
call.
Yeah, I do. And I was thinking about it. It's that I remember when you told me this when we were on our trip.
Oh, yeah.
My dad and I were on a trip together, and I was like in a full blown crisis about my relationship, and he told me that it's so important to live your truth, and that goes for who you're dating, because if you can't do that, with the person who you're going to spend your entire life with, you have nothing, basically. And that's something that I've worked on a lot over the past couple of years of being single, is knowing what I want and not caring if that doesn't work for somebody else.
Yeah.
Because I used to. I used to care.
I think that goes right back to what we were just talking
anymore.
about of dating in your 20s versus dating in
Right.
your 30s, right? Because in your 20s, you're like, I'll be whatever you want me to be.
Yeah. Or, I'll be whatever you want me to be because maybe one day things will change and you'll marry me. But
or I'll be whatever you want me to be because I don't really know who I am.
Yeah.
That's
exactly.
your 20s, right?
Yeah.
But once you start to really figure out who you are, that's when you ideally become more discerning in your choices.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing.
Yeah. And it makes me so uncomfortable now to, be something that I'm not, or pretend to be into something or someone when I'm not. It makes me physically uncomfortable. I can't do
I can't
it.
even do that with friends, really.
No.
Yeah. So Hannah was just telling us that you and Mrs. Leder got engaged on your second date. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure.
And
Did
how
you know, were you
it
living your
makes me.
truth already, date 2?
My truth overwhelmed me.
Lucky.
Wait, he was 24 also.
Yeah,
My parents were 24.
We were both 24 years old. You know what? I was living in Cincinnati, which I refer to as warm Siberia, because it's just not a place I enjoyed living. But that's where the seminary was, where I went to rabbinical school.
Siberia.
Yeah, it was like warm Siberia. It was the longest 4 years of my life. And being single and wanting to date Jewish women in Cincinnati with I'm studying to be a rabbi as your opener, really tough, okay? So when you're in rabbinical school, you go to these godforsaken communities that can't afford a full-time rabbi but still have like a pulse, Jews with a pulse there. I, for example, was sent to Sherman, Texas,
Oh my gosh.
one weekend a
There are
month.
Jews there?
There were 20 Jews, and yeah, I mean, it was right up near the border with
So you knew
Oklahoma.
every Jew in Sherman, Texas,
Every
basically.
Jew, they were all Main Street Jews. The men's wear store, the accountant, the dentist, the women's wear store. That's what it was. And the non-Jews there, they had no idea who I was, what I was, and they referred to me as Rabbi Steve Leder, the pastor from the Hebrew church. That's what they called me. So Betsy grew up at a student pulpit. Marion, Indiana was one of these towns with, a handful of Jews. And a friend of mine was the student rabbi there. He was there with his wife. Betsy went to services with her parents. And they met her. She was the youngest person by, 100 years who was there. And they said, "What are you doing here?" She said, "Well, I've moved from New York. I'm recuperating from some medical things. I'm pretty bored, but I need to be around family." And he and his wife, the student rabbi and his wife, said, "Well, why don't you come to Cincinnati with us for the week?" So she brought Betsy with her, walked into my office and introduced me. And I thought she was just introducing her guest for the day. But when Betsy walked into the room, I felt like the barometric pressure of the universe changed. I remember
This is so
exactly
sweet.
what she was wearing, the color of her eyes, the pin on her jean jacket, everything.
Yeah, it's sweet. It's sweet now, but
And now we're just going on Hinge
Oh
dates,
my
like
God.
stomaching it.
and then the second you see the guy walk into the bar, you're like, "Fuck, I want to
Okay.
go home."
All right. Hold on a minute. Now, I have news for you and your listeners.
Okay.
And Hannah's heard me say this. You have no idea how bad it was when I was that age, because blind dates back then were literally blind dates. You had
You didn't even know
no
what they looked
idea
like.
what they looked like. None. And you just
But
opened
you
the
at
door.
least had a friend in common. Do you think that helped?
No, because people would
kinda
fix
helps.
me up and say, "Oh, our friends who live in Cincinnati have a wonderful daughter, and you should go." I said, "Okay," and you
See, I
open
would
the
love
door,
that.
and it's
Really?
Yes.
That happens to me now sometimes. And I go, "Well, tell me about his qualities. Like, what kind of a person is he? What is he?
She's
into?
lovely. You know, her parents are so you open the door and you had to roll with the punches. It didn't matter. And that was really, really tough. And there were no cell phones. Nobody could call you and get you out of it or anything
I was
like
going to
that.
ask, at the end of the first episode, and nobody wants this, when he's trying to leave the synagogue and everyone comes up and they're
I
like...
helped with that. I helped write that scene, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So can you tell me I guess you were a rabbi. You were a single rabbi at a time.
No, I was married before I graduated from rabbinical school.
Okay.
But honestly...
So was that scene what you would imagine that would look like?
Well, when that scene was originally written, it was exclusively women trying to hawk their daughters on the new young rabbi. And I said to the writers, that actually doesn't happen. One or two people might say that, but there are 6 or 7 more saying, Rabbi, my cousin, he was just diagnosed with liver cancer and he thinks the world of you. And it would be, Rabbi, can you speak at the sisterhood, bingo or mahjong event? Or Rabbi, I saw you. Was that your
Rabbi,
lovely
will you be
wife?
on my dating podcast?
Yeah. So but you do get besieged when you step off of the pulpit. So that's it. So the scene was a little lopsided and we kind of corrected the balance of the kinds of things that people throw at you when you step into the congregation. In any case, so Betsy leaves the office, and Linda was this woman's name who brought Betsy, and she leans over my desk and she says, do you have a girlfriend? And I said, no. She said, well, Brad and I are busy tomorrow. We need somebody to go out with Betsy. Can you take her out? At which point, internally, I'm like doing a happy dance. Yeah. I calmly reach into my briefcase and take out my calendar. We had paper calendars back in the day. And I said, well, let me see, as if like I wasn't going to do it. So I'm just thinking inside, oh, God, this is going to be great. And we went out for dinner. And then we sat down. I lived in a building on the Ohio River. We sat down on the banks of the Ohio River with a bottle of wine, and I'm not exaggerating. 12 hours later.
Wait a minute, question. Did she drink any of that wine?
Very little. Yeah.
Does she not drink?
No, she's... Yeah. 12 hours later, we realized, like...
This is it?
Well, no. I think that feeling was much earlier, but we realized, like, we never even told Brad and Linda, like, what was up. And they don't even... You've been gone. She was staying with them.
Oh.
They probably thought
you kidnapped her.
Yeah.
Abducted by the rabbi.
Yeah. So
that's the next Netflix show.
That's perfect. Yeah. So she came back the next weekend. It was Friday. We were sitting on the couch in my apartment, and I had symphony tickets. And we had to, like, get ready to go to the symphony.
Classy second date.
Well, got to bring the A game. And I just looked at her, and I said, I don't know if I should say this or not, but I think you're it. And Betsy looked at me, and she said, I feel the same way. And then I, as only a 24-year-old could, I said, so are we engaged? And Betsy said, I guess so. That was it. And we've been married for 39 years.
And that's why it's so hard
I was about
for
to say,
me to talk to my parents about dating.
How do you date?
Except,
how do you even date with that as your example?
Wait a minute.
No, or it's like when I'm, venting and my mom will be like, I know. And I'll say, no, you don't, miss. I got engaged at 24 on my second date.
But
you don't
both
know.
of us went through horrible breakups.
Yeah.
We were both in very dysfunctional relationships. And the part we can talk to you about with real credibility is when you know. Okay.
Yeah.
We can speak of with some authority. Yeah.
Different times.
Yeah.
So kind of with this, we're talking about dating apps, we're talking about blind dates, all that. So my next question is kind of, I know there's this Jewish concept of your besheret.
Besheret, yeah.
And that sort of personal romantic destiny. And now we're in the age of dating apps. So because we live in this world of swiping, it feels like a little random. It feels like a lottery. So do you have any advice on how to reconcile this seemingly like random feeling of the dating app with this idea of destiny and to share it.
Yeah. So let's preface this by telling you I've done, I don't know, somewhere between 700 and 800 weddings, which means I've heard 700 to 800 marriage origin stories. There is no one way. There is no best way. There's only the way it happened. And so I say, try it all. What do you have to lose? And in some ways, the dating apps, you know more about a person than I certainly knew about Betsy when she walked into that room.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
I do like that. Like it says if they want kids, it says
What they're looking for,
Yeah.
you can
It
find
kind
out what
of
they do.
clears the way, I would think, for that first date to be about something other than, minutia. And I don't think it. There are many paths to your beshert. None of them wrong. Unless obviously something incredibly dysfunctional or, some kind of addictive behavior or whatever it is. But
Yeah.
whether you meet your beshert waiting in line for a
Trader
concert or on an app or they're friends of your parents, it doesn't matter. Take the win. I was in India years ago.
like
Every woman I met in India had an arranged marriage. And they were fine with it because guess what? Your parents are not idiots. They actually do have a sense of who you are and the cultural dynamics of your family and another family. So I say take the win, however you get there.
Okay. I like that answer. I can live with that. I feel like we grew up thinking it was going to be in line at a concert or
It might
something
be.
like that.
It might be.
I need to open my mind to that.
Yeah.
I feel like in the last few years I've been like one Hinge date a week. Like I got almost too gamey about it.
I was like that for a while. One time I went on 3 Hinge dates in 1 week. That
I
was
went
too
on 2
much.
in one night recently.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
I'm not going to do that again.
No.
It was a coincidence.
You know what Hannah said earlier about living your truth? Everyone does it their own way, and there is no wrong way.
So it's not wrong that I went on 2 Hinge dates
No.
in one night.
No, it's what you wanted to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
I was
Rabbi.
I was talking about this with my therapist about how I just do things how I want to do them, and sometimes people might not agree with it, like my mom or my dad, but I tell me if I'm wrong. Ever since I could talk or walk, I've
Absolutely.
decided what I was going to do or what I wanted, and I figured out how to do it.
That's right.
Does your dad ever give you advice and you're like, can you just be a dad and not a rabbi? And like, this advice is too profound.
Yes, but not very. That used to happen a lot when I was younger.
Yeah.
Not really anymore.
Now you appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that when you have a profession like the rabbinate or a psychiatrist, psychologist, teacher, whatever, you are always suspect and liable for, okay, rabbi.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I have really tried to give advice when asked and let Hannah be Hannah. The rest, all the time. Because if you're, as she said so well earlier, if you're inauthentic in the process, you're going to have a result that forces you to pretend or to lead a double life or to be, your life becomes like kabuki. And that's a horrible way to live.
Mm-hmm.
What's it like when you tell a guy on a date that your dad's a rabbi? Do they get intimidated?
I used to think that they did, so I wouldn't bring it up. I would just wait until
Until it was relevant.
I would just wait until the conversation about parents started, and if he asked me, I would answer, but I wouldn't bring it up on my own.
Yeah,
No.
you don't lead with it.
No, but I did once go on a date with another rabbi's son.
That's awesome.
It was fun because we had this understanding. Like, there was a lot of stuff we didn't have to talk about. because we already knew the experience. But there were things that we could talk about that we couldn't really talk about with anybody else because we were the only two people who really understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That must have been a really interesting date. That would be
Yeah.
a good podcast episode.
Yeah. But no, I used to think that it would intimidate people, but every guy...
It definitely adds pressure to meeting the parents.
Well, every guy I've told on a date that my dad is a rabbi, they think it is so cool.
Really?
Yeah. And I go,
Not
Are they
so much.
picturing that?
yes. When I was a kid, people would always say, what's it like having, your dad be a rabbi? And I don't know, it's just his job. Like, your dad's a lawyer. What's that like? Your dad's a dentist. What's it like having a dad who's a dentist? Like, can you not eat candy? I don't know. People would ask me, do you have to go to temple every day? No.
Yeah.
I go like a couple times a year. It's his job,
Yeah.
It's not mine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't lead with I'm a rabbi either. When I'm on a plane, I just say...
They're like, is there a rabbi on the plane? Someone's having a religious identity crisis.
Yes. When I'm on a plane, I don't tell people I'm a rabbi. You're in for 4.5 hours of suffering. So but I don't lie either. I just say I'm a writer. Well, what do you write about? I write about loss and transitions and, spirituality. Oh, that's lovely. And, even if they ask me my name, I just say Steve. Because while being a Jew is my entire identity, my role is not.
Yeah. That's nice that you can turn it on and off. I don't know
Well,
that.
you learn how to do that. There are certain jobs that require, I'm going to be very honest with you. So I've been seeing a psychiatrist for about 10 years. Ever since I was in a really bad car accident and had spinal surgery, and it really messed me up. And I remember saying to him, I don't know how many years ago, I said, I feel like the minute I step out my front door, I'm acting. And he said, well, you are. People need you to play a role. I said, so I'm not a phony? Because I feel like a phony. He said, no, your community expects you to play that role.
It's like being a preschool teacher. You could be having the shittiest day or your life is in shambles, but you have to, sing the songs and do the silly dances. You have to.
And
I mean,
you
I
should.
really feel that
Yeah.
way as a comedian. And I talk to my therapist about that all the time with dating. It's hard. My first boyfriend actually found me through my comedy, and he was an audience member at my show.
See,
and
there you go. It
That's
wasn't a
so
concert, but it
cute.
was close.
And we started going out, and after a few months, he kind of started losing interest. And he had told me, like, you had this amazing life on Instagram, and I just wanted to live it with you, and you're at all these cool shows, and you're hanging out with all these cool comedians. And as he got to know me and realized I was a three-dimensional person who also wanted to watch Netflix and also sometimes am not funny and have emotions that aren't just making people happy. I mean, that was when I was 24 and I've grown up a lot, but I think that my therapy for 2 years after that was similar to what you were talking about of like, if I'm going to hang out with a person all the time, I am not this person who I am on stage. I'm not always funny. I'm not always there to make you laugh.
Yes.
Sometimes I
Yes.
just want to chill out.
Yeah, you're a fully human being. And, in my world, and this I think was extremely difficult for Aaron and for Hannah.
Aaron is my brother.
Yeah, is that there are no boundaries. Your professional and personal life and relationships, it's not even a Venn diagram. They completely overlap. Mm-hmm. You are the rabbi to everyone, even the parents in Hannah's preschool class, when she was in preschool, right? They cannot differentiate or disambiguate the roles. They cannot. And you learn to be gracious about it and live with it because it's an honor to have the position I had. I really feel that to this day. I'm very proud of it. But it comes with the responsibility of being a symbolic exemplar for a community. And that'll mess you up.
I'm sure especially this year that's been.
Well, it's been an even greater privilege this year.
Yeah.
Because I also felt this way during COVID. Someone interviewed, I don't remember what it was for, but someone said, well, how's it been, guiding such a huge congregation and community through COVID? And I said, it hasn't been easy, but I want the ball in my hands. I'm glad to have the ball in my hands because I've been doing this a long time and I know what to do. So that was sort of an added privilege, and I feel that way since October 7th too. It's like I'm in a place in my life and my relationships and my depth of knowledge and platform. I'm glad I'm the guy.
Yeah.
I don't want to see some, lame-ass rabbi representing the Jewish community in such a crucial moment to the world. I don't want some loser on CNN, blah, blah, blah.
No,
So,
we're lucky to have you. So to transition, this is off a conversation that Hannah and I were having with a friend recently where we were talking about breakups, and we said how breakups is grieving someone who's still alive. And I know that,
but it is a death.
Yeah.
It's the death of a relationship.
Yeah, but the hard part is, if you wanted to talk to that person, you could. If someone's dead, you can't just text them. You can't just drive to their house.
So you have, but in some ways, they're different, but in this way, they're the same. Because one of the things that I've learned about death is that it forces you to confront the dualities of life. I know this is going to sound very woo-woo, but I have come to the conclusion after all these years that the actual fuel of existence, the fuel of life, is duality, is dissonance, is dichotomous tension. So for example, when it comes to loss or a breakup and an old boyfriend or girlfriend, you have the duality of memory.
You were talking about this.
Because people say all the time, and rabbis are full of platitudes about, may her memory be a blessing, may his memory, and it's true, memory is beautiful. It is. But it is equally true that memory is incredibly painful. It's both. And what grief eventually, ideally, enables us to do is to make peace with the fact that it is an irreconcilable duality. And so, now this is sort of trippy, but for me, I have come to the place where accepting that these two poles can't be reconciled, accepting that this is a duality, that this is an irreconcilable difference, memory is beautiful and memory hurts, accepting that that cannot be anything other than at odds with each other is a resolution.
In that vein of with a breakup, they're still alive. I was very on and off with my ex.
Yeah, I went through that too.
And I knew he wasn't the one. But you're in that pain where it's I can't stop crying. My body can't stop crying. It's been 3 days. I can't stop crying. Unlike death, if I hopped in my Prius and drove to Sherman Oaks and he wanted me back, but it wasn't the right person. So do you have any advice, knowing he's not the one, knowing that this is not the father of my child, he is a child?
It's very interesting what you said about crying for 3 days. I'm sure you're not aware of it, but when someone dies, the first 3 days of mourning in the Talmud are called Yemei Bechi, the days of crying. That all you can do for the first 3 days is cry.
Yeah.
Yeah. And doing that while teaching a preschool class is
not
not easy.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And then there's 7 days. You sit Shiva, and then at the end of Shiva, the rabbi literally takes the family and walks them out of their house around the neighborhood to walk them back into life. And then there's a 30-day set of behaviors, and then there's an 11-month set of behaviors. So there are...
That is so applicable to a breakup, I think.
Well, because...
But also,
similar,
but that sounds...
I would say that was my timeline.
But that sounds so, regimented. If I learned anything after my breakup, is that it doesn't happen.
It's in waves.
It doesn't happen all in order.
Wait. I'm not implying,
it's a huge
Hannah,
mess.
Wait, I'm not implying that grief is linear.
Oh, okay.
Grief is not something that gets a little bit better every day until it's gone like a rash, okay? Grief is non-linear. The way I put it is, anyone who thinks the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line knows nothing about grief, because it is non-linear. My generation, we were all raised under the sort of teaching and thinking of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who was the first person to write openly about death, and she divided death and dying and loss and mourning into stages. There were 5 stages. And her work was more sophisticated than this, but the title implies, well, when you're grieving, first you're going to feel A, then B, then C, then D, then E, and then you're done. And that's not true. That is absolutely not true. It is a non-linear, it is much more like waves. And maybe this will be helpful for all of your listeners who deal with breakups. Before my dad died, any kind of wave that was coming at me, a wave of stress, hard work, whatever it was, family issues, any wave coming at me, no matter how large, my default setting was, okay, I'm going to plant my feet in the sand, I'm going to stick out my chest, and I'm going to stand here and take it, because I'm tougher than any fucking wave. That was me before my dad died. And then my dad died, and I just couldn't stand up to some of those waves, and I learned a second way of dealing with waves, which you learn when you're very young too, ideally, which is when there's a massive wave coming at you, often the best thing to do is lie down and let it wash over you and float with it. Just float with it until you can stand up again. And very often, if you reach your hand out, there's someone standing next to you who will reach back and help lift you from that pain. It's a better way to go in any kind of loss. Sometimes you just got to float with it until you can stand up again. Because if you try to stand up to it
too early,
full force, you end up thrown against the rocks and gasping for air and scared, and it's not a helpful response. Yeah.
Let's jump back into a few dating questions. I know we have to wrap it up. You do counseling with couples before their wedding day,
yes,
right?
I meet with every couple 5 times.
Okay, that's what I assumed. Have you ever had a couple sit in the chairs and after 3 or 4 times, do you think maybe this couple
Yes.
should not make it to the altar?
Sure.
And
Yes.
how do you deal with that?
Okay.
And what are the things that you see that would make you want to advise maybe against calling off a wedding?
Okay, so first of all, after the first meeting, which is a get to know you, and here's the process, and here's what we're going to go through, and get to the second meeting, and we start talking about the ceremony and your families and this and that, and then we'll get to the third meeting, and they'll come in and sit on the couch, and I always say, third meeting, how you guys doing? And I can tell, Taylor, in a nanosecond how they're doing by the look on their face when I ask the question. They're either like, we're good, we're great, or they glance at each other like, shit, how does he know? We're like fighting all the time, or I hate your mother, or whatever. You can pick it up in a nanosecond.
Well, especially because you've seen so many,
Yes.
you have so much to compare it to.
Yes, and then I will just say, well, what's going on, really? And then it comes out, and it's good that it comes out, because these kinds of the specifics of the disagreement and tension is, frankly, from my perspective, irrelevant. It doesn't matter if it's about sex, money, in-laws, geography. I want to live in New York. She wants to live in LA. It doesn't matter what the issue is. What matters is it is an issue around which the two of you can go to school and learn how to talk to each other and learn how to support each other and learn how to listen to each other. Because if you think this is all going to go away because you get married, you're wrong. It's always something. It's always something.
And it's only going to be bigger and deeper issues, right?
Correct.
It's gonna be
And
family members
more
getting sick,
more at
kids.
stake and more skin in the game. And so the question is not, do you have disagreements? The question is, do you disagree in a productive way? Do you disagree like a team? It's not whether or not you fight. It's how you fight, how you disagree that matters. That's what matters. Because, when couples come to see me about an unwanted pregnancy, for example, Rabbi, we don't know what to do. Should we abort or not abort? We don't. Yeah. My first question is not about that. My first question is, how's your marriage? Because if your marriage isn't strong, you're going to suffer either decision. And if your marriage is strong, you're going to be fine no matter what you decide. So, these external things, they are always pressuring you, always. So that's that. Now, when I do pick up on a couple that doesn't know how to communicate or disagree lovingly and with some empathy, you never talk about canceling a wedding. You talk about postponing. So I would say to you, let's make up what guy's name do you want to use?
Let's just say Channing Tatum.
Channing. Okay. I would say Taylor Channing. Let me ask you guys something.
She's like, yeah.
Do you want to be standing under the chuppah feeling this way about each other? No. And they both say no. I say, well, then let's slow it down and work toward you being up there and feeling so united in your empathy and love for each other. Let's get some help. You both had bad models growing up. I'm going to give you 3 names and get some help. You can learn how to do this. You've just never had to before, and you didn't grow up with very good teachers. So let's slow it down. But the invitations are out. I said, who cares?
I'm going to start saying this to my friends when I think they should break up with people. I'm going to say, do you want to stand under the chuppah feeling like this?
And I also say, no, and they think, oh, what are people going to think? I said, let me tell you something. Anyone who's married will get it. When people say marriage is work, they're not talking about who picks up the dry cleaning and who picks up the dog shit. They're talking about how hard it is to see the world through another person's eyes. And what to do about the fact that we're more polite often to a stranger asking for directions than we are to the person we claim to love the most in the world. If you were 2 ambassadors from a different country at the UN and we wanted to create a relationship, how would we go about that? We would ask questions. Well, what does this mean in your culture? In my culture, it means this. What does it mean in your culture? We'd learn a few words in each other's language. We'd be polite. We'd be respectful because we want to create this relationship. And we come from different countries. Every bride and groom are from a different country. We're all raised, every individual is raised in a different country. What's funny is different. What's wrong, what's unacceptable is different. The use of money, it's different what it's for. Family and the importance of it is different. Every single one of us.
Do you think having more things in common with a partner makes a relationship easier?
It's not just more things. It's like I'd rather take a few of the most important things than a lot of things that aren't very important. Okay. So I think that
like
you have to...
Like we were just talking about parents married, like having, my parents are married, your parents are married versus married, divorced. With the show on Netflix, nobody wants this.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are thinking about being the same religion, whether, things like that. And those are questions that I ask myself all the time. Like, even do I want someone in the industry or do I want someone East Coast? Like, I feel like when I go on a date with another East Coaster, we click faster. I don't know if that's just first date. Oh, this is
it's
fun first date, or if this will get us through a marriage.
My only point is, I guess the language that you would use is non-negotiables. You are entitled to non-negotiables. They're very important, but they're different for each person and each couple. And so my non-negotiables, very different than yours, but yes, you should have non-negotiables. And you should also have empathy and an open mind for certain things, right? So it's a dance. It's a beautiful dance.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that we've gone on very long on this podcast, and I could keep having this conversation for days, but I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So you guys, this was the Leders. You've got Hannah Leder. If you want to take her out on a date, click the link in our bio. You've got Rabbi Steve Leder. If you want to just follow an amazing Instagram account.
With the most amazing daughter in the world, Hannah.
Do you want to give one quick little pitch on why someone should take Hannah on a date?
She's beautiful, kind, and funny.
What more could you want?
I often said that if I, when she was little, if I ever got stuck in an elevator, the one person I'd want to be with was Hannah.
Even when she was a toddler?
Yes. She was hilarious and kind and sweet and strong. I mean, she's the
whole
greatest.
package.
She really, I know I'm biased, but I mean, wow. And she's kind of like, I mean this in the best way, she's feminine and beautiful, but she's also like kind of a dude. Like she likes hockey. She goes fly fishing with me.
We watched football last weekend.
Yeah, I watched football. She's like a dude, and I like that too, you know?
All right, you heard it here from the rabbi himself. Take Hannah out on a date.